Memory's finally here. Let's get started. Since I upgraded my wife's computer, I've had some spare parts laying around that I want to be using for an upgrade project of the home server that I'm currently using. And the last thing I needed to get to fill out those parts was some memory. So I've got the motherboard from my old computer, the CPU for my wife's computer, and I'm going to be using a lot of the existing hard drives, power supply from the home server itself, and then I picked this up just recently. This is 8 gigs of Corsair Vengeance Ram. We've seen this kind of memory before. It's pretty cool looking, some pretty neat heat spreaders, and the only reason why I went with Corsair was because it was on sale at the time that I ordered it, so it just worked out like that. I think it's going to look really cool in the blue motherboard, but of course I'm not really doing anything for cosmetics because the server just stays in the rack all day. So I'm going to pull the server out of the rack and get it up on the workbench so that we can get going on this project. Alright, I've got the server on the workbench, so let's talk about the existing setup before we start taking everything out. The CPU, RAM, and motherboard came out of an Asus Essential PC that I've had for a long time. It's an older Intel CPU. I think it might be a Core 2 Duo or something along those lines. 6 gigs of DDR2 memory, and it worked, pretty well for what it's been in service for. There are a couple of shortcomings though, and I think probably the biggest is the number of Sata ports and the fact that they're the older Sata 3 gig per second speed ports. So all of my hard drives can support the Sata 3 6 gig per second ports, and having a motherboard that's got that's going to be really helpful for transfer speeds and for backup speeds and just general hard drive performance, so that's going to be really good. Now I am running Windows Server 2012 Essentials. I actually really like that a lot. There is a 2012 Essentials R2, which is the sort of the next flavor of 2012 server. Now there isn't an easy upgrade path for me, and to make a long story short, I basically have to start from scratch. Not a huge deal in my case because of just the way that I have things set up, and we'll get into that in just a little bit as we progress. So the first thing I need to do is pull this out and then get the other motherboard in so we can move forward on that side. Here's the motherboard that's going to be going in. This is an Asus P8Z68 V-PRO. This is the original motherboard from my computer, the one that I just replaced. Check out the description and you'll find the playlist to the original build series featuring this board. Installed right now is the i3-2120. That's the Intel Sandy Bridge CPU running at 3.3 gigahertz. It's a dual core processor that came out of my wife's computer, and that's going to work nicely here. This guy has DDR3 memory. It's got eSATA USB 3.0 gigabit LAN. The upgraded SATA ports that I mentioned earlier. Just overall really nice motherboard. Now I considered selling this and then just getting something a little bit more downgraded for this process, but I figured, you know what, I already have it on hand. I don't have to deal with the hassle. I'm just going to use it. So I need to get the board prepped. So I'll install the memory, and I'm going to be using this. Now I haven't had a lot of luck using these stock Intel CPU coolers, but I have like 3 or 4 of them on hand. And quite frankly, a taller CPU cooler is just not going to fit in that case. And because we're not overclocking, this should work out okay. Now this is the cooler that came out of my daughter's i5 CPU, so it's a little bit more bulky than the i3 cooler. So I figured, why not? It's not going to get any use, so I can use it here. And that should be fine as far as the profile goes. And then we can get the memory installed, and then we'll be ready to go. That was nice and easy. And for not really caring about cosmetics for this, I think it actually looks pretty cool. Even the blue on the CPU cooler looks really coordinated, and the blue on the heat spreaders I think looks pretty neat. This is a Roswell RSV 4000 server chassis, and I've had this for a little while. Links in the description below for the unboxing and overview of the case. Now, the motherboard fit in just fine. I had to rearrange a couple of the standoffs to accommodate the larger board, and I moved the drive cages up front, or slightly up a little bit, so that I had a little bit more room to work with. Now it's probably a good enough time to talk about my hard drives. I have a 120 gig Intel SSD for my boot drive, a 2 terabyte Western Digital Red, a pair of 3 terabyte Western Digital Reds, a 750 gig, and a 1 terabyte Western Digital Black drives. When I originally put Server 2012 in service, I was using Windows storage spaces, but I ran into an issue for that. I will leave a link in the description for the video explaining what happened and why I have some Western Digital Red drives. But suffice it to say, I moved away from that and I used a piece of software called Drive Pool from a company called StableBit, and that works really, really well. So I'm going to continue to do that moving forward. And one of the good things, and I'll find out after I have everything set up, is that I shouldn't have to do any kind of special thing. I should be able to get my software installed, reinstall StableBit, and then plug the drives in, and they should be recognized. At least that's what the documentation says. So we'll see how that goes. Now on top here I have a DVD-RW drive just plugged in temporarily. It's just something that I had on the shelf because that's where I'm going to be installing the software from. And I only have the Intel SSD plugged in so that I install the software on that drive only. And that's going to take a little time to do. Through the magic of video editing, Server 2012 R2 is finally installed. Everything went pretty smoothly. The only issue I had was with finding a driver for the onboard NIC on this motherboard. For whatever reason, this exact motherboard doesn't have a compatible network driver. So there were some pretty decent instructions on some forums, and I was able to follow that and pretty easily get that set up. So I'm all set there. And now what I need to do is unhook the DVD drive, which is this guy here, and plug in all the hard drives, make sure that they get recognized, and then I think at that point I'll be ready to put this back in the rack and then finish my configuration from the comfort of my office. Alright, here's the completed server, everything plugged in, all the hard drives set up and ready to go. One of the really nice things about using the upgraded hardware is I now have 2 Sata ports available, which is going to be really nice, especially if I want to add more space in the future, which is always a possibility. I actually have one Sata 6 gig per second port and one Sata 3 gig per second port available to me. Which is great. Now I need to get this back in the rack. I'll put the cover and the crossbar on, plug it back in, and then I'll finish the configuration upstairs for my office. So I need to do some of the more mundane stuff like re-add all the users and set up the StableBit software, and then I also need to set up Crash Plan, which is what I use for my offsite backup. Now leave me a comment below, let me know if that's something that you guys are interested in, because I know I've mentioned StableBit and Crash Plan in the past, so if you want some videos about that, let me know in the comments below. Well, I made a mistake when I was talking about this motherboard in the beginning of the video, specifically having to do with these 3 sticks of memory. So these are 2 gig sticks of DDR3 memory, not DDR2. These are running at 1333 megahertz, and what that means is I probably didn't have to buy that Corsair memory. Now, I think in retrospect, I'm glad that I did, because I have 8 gigs on the new server in dual channel mode, which is going to be good. But probably even better is that I have memory here for this motherboard that I know is solid because it worked flawlessly in my server, and I actually still have the original chassis for this thing, so I can reinstall this back into that case, and now I have a computer that's available. So I can do one of a few things. I could, put it together and sell it and make some money for the next project, which is probably what I'm going to do. I could maybe look into building like a media PC for my television that's down here in the basement. That's a possibility. And I could do a handful of other things. I'd be curious to see what you guys think. Leave me a comment below if you have any ideas. It's always neat to interact with you guys, and it's always interesting to hear what you guys have to say, so that'd be really cool. But I think that's going to wrap it up for this video for sure. Look in the description, you're going to find links to playlists of all the stuff that I talked about. You're also going to find links to where I'm at on Twitter, Google+, Instagram, follow me there for updates on everything that I'm doing. I've got some plans, channel related, that I think I might talk about there before I actually get to it on the channel, because that's a lot quicker to post, like on Twitter or whatever. So follow me there, you'll get updates on that sort of stuff. Also, if this is your first time here, subscribe and share and like. That's always going to help me out. And just come back for more of these kind of videos. It's just something that I like to do here in my basement. And anyways, I think I've rambled on enough. Thank you guys for watching. See you next time.